guys, it's Shawnee Daigle, broker associate of Champions Realty Team powered by EXP. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Gregory Clark to the show. He's a Southeast Texas native and has been in some aspect of real estate for the past 10 years. However, he is the owner, along with his wife, of Legendary Inspection Group. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, how you doing today, man?
Good, good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, Gregory Wayne Clark Jr., Southeast Texas, born and bred. Got my foundation here in Southeast Texas, Beaumont community. Graduated from Central High School, went on to Sam Houston State University, beat 'em up cats, where I obtained a bachelor's and a master's degree in criminal justice. So that
Okay.
was, my first love. But I am the owner and operator, lead inspector here at Legendary Inspection Group. We have two other inspectors working with us at the time. So definitely glad to be here. Just a little bit about myself.
So, what made you want to get into inspections?
If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, so I have an uncle who's a builder here in Southeast Texas, Cornell Price. After graduate school, we did some investment properties together. He was kind of showing me the ropes a little bit, and I remember paying an inspector to come to my first investment property to check it out for me. The
Right.
guy wasn't there very long, and I was like, man, I paid this guy X amount of dollars to come and do this. And so, my uncle, he, planted the seed. He was like, you're a smart guy. Why don't you try to do that? And so for the longest, I pushed it to the back of my mind. But one day I was like, you know what? I think I can do that. And I think I can do it and offer a great service, to the buyers in Southeast Texas.
Right, right. So that's awesome. You actually had somebody in the family to bring you into the business. A
Yes,
lot of
ma'am.
people, you know, when they think about real estate, they don't think about all the different aspects that are options to be able to go into. So that's really good. The home inspection business is certainly booming right now with the market the way it is.
Yes, ma'am.
So, speaking of the market the way it is, a lot of people are basically in bidding wars now to get into a house. So, there's a lot of competition. And one of the things
Hmm.
we see some people doing is foregoing an inspection, not even having an option period to give them time to have those inspections and go over them. What do you think about that?
Um, as an inspector, and I wouldn't recommend that at all. I definitely get some type of option period so you can get someone out there to just tell you the condition of that home at the time that you're purchasing it. I mean,
Right,
you want to know what's going on with the property. I understand homes are in high demand right now and you want what you want when you want it, right? However, that home is a great investment. It's not only a financial investment, but it's definitely like an emotional investment. It's an investment of your time, and you don't want to get into something, blindly. I
right,
always tell people, and I make this analogy, here in Southeast Texas, no one that I know is going to purchase a car without looking under the hood. I don't care if you don't know anything about vehicles, right? You still
right,
gonna pop open the hood and look at it. You're gonna kick some tires. You're gonna do something, do a
right.
test drive, something. And so that home, that's even greater investment. And so you definitely want to have an inspector go out, even if you can only get a 1 or 2 day option period. I know with Legendary, we'll be out there, same day or next day if it works out between the sellers and their time. And I know these other inspectors, they'll get out there pretty soon. So definitely get that property inspected.
Okay. And then what are the normal, or what is the normal cost of a home inspection?
So the national average is it's around $400 for a home inspection. So you
Okay.
definitely just want to have those fees put up, if you plan on having your property inspected.
So
And of
that's one of the
course,
things. Go ahead.
and I was going to say, of course, that's always going to be based on square footage. So when you're looking
Okay.
at a house, of course, the larger the home, the more um, the price is going to be for that inspection, and the lower the square footage, the lower the price is going to be.
Right. So one of the things a lot of people don't realize is going into a home, there are some upfront costs. And of course, the home inspection is one of those costs, as well as you have your earnest money expense and your appraisal fees. So I try to tell people a lot of times they see in advertising, people say, oh, we'll get you into the house with no money. Oh, no, that's not quite true. You do need to have some money, definitely your earnest money your option fee and the cost of your inspection. Sometimes your appraisal can be bumped to the back end,
Right.
but you do need to have that money. What are some of the issues that you see, I guess, most common with existing homes?
So with existing homes, I think the most common thing that we probably see as inspectors are rotted wood, and
Mhm.
that's oftentimes called out for most home inspectors. A lot of times we also see just some electrical issues. I know we're not code inspectors, guys, but there's certain things that the state of Texas wants. They like us to point out GFCI protection at your wet areas. They want us to point that out. Um, Safety concerns, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, those types of things will be pointed out, you know? And
Right.
so that's really the most common thing that we see during a home inspection. If I had to just say, just general, that we typically write up.
Okay. And then well, let me back up a minute. You mentioned the
Okay.
GFCIs, and you said wet areas. I just want to clarify for some people that don't know. Like
So
if,
wet areas,
right, go ahead.
wet areas are definitely going to be just your kitchen, your bathrooms, by your pools. So for those homeowners who have pools,
Right.
garages, and the exterior of the property.
Okay. And within how many feet should a GFCI be from those areas?
6 feet, within 6 feet.
Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and then one of the other questions I wanted to ask is for people who are thinking about selling their home. Do you think it's a
Okay.
good idea for them to get an inspection done prior to putting their house on the market so they kind of know what issues to address?
So that's definitely called like a pre-listing home inspection.
Mhm.
And I do recommend it. Some people opt out of it, some sellers do not. But I'm gonna tell you some of the benefits of a pre-listing home inspection. You know exactly what you can repair. You know what needs to be repaired. You know what you're going to negotiate on and what you're not going to negotiate on. So you have a general knowledge. You definitely don't want to be an uninformed seller thinking that the property is perfect, right? And
Right,
then you get this inspector come, the inspector comes in, he writes up a bunch of things and holds up the deal, or the buyers end up backing out, and it just lengthens the time that your house is on the market, and no one wants that. And so a pre-listing inspection can definitely just help you to avoid all of those obstacles.
right. What I find is a lot of times we get emotionally attached to our homes.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you may think your home is the best thing ever, but a buyer is looking at it as this is a big purchase in their life, one of the biggest purchases they'll make.
Right.
So they want to make sure that everything is in working order. So, like you said, going into it blind, and then you get hit with this 20 something, 30 something page report. Now your feelings are hurt. And you're mad, and it's definitely not something that you should get in your emotions about. You have to look at it
No,
just as if you were buying something and you wanted to know, was it in good working order. So
exactly,
you,
exactly. But just put
you
yourself in the best positions for your house to be able to sell as quick as you would like it to.
right, and you would be really surprised how many sellers do not. I mean, I can probably count on two hands how many
Hmm.
sellers actually took that step to get that done before, listing their home. So
Yes,
that's a
ma'am.
big one. Is there anything as a realtor that you wish we did better or that we need to know about home inspections?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I work with some great agents here in Southeast Texas, but for the newer agents that I will be coming in contact with, just let the realtor and the home inspector, we kind of work hand in hand.
Yeah,
It's not our desire to kill a deal by no means, right? But the goal is just to make sure that that buyer is going to make an informed decision. So after they close, neither one of us are getting calls saying, you missed this, or I felt pressure into this. No, that's never the key. And as far as the inspection process, as long as everyone keeps an open line of communication, that's
right,
always the key. See, I'll never tell a buyer something that I won't tell their agent, and
right,
vice versa. I try to keep everybody at the table so that way we can all talk about some of these issues. Because as an inspector, these buyers, they may get a 30, 35-page report, and that's very frightening. So as the
right.
inspector, it's our job to kind of explain it to them. And as an agent, yours as well. You can say, hey, sometimes I see these things, they're common. and then the inspector can kind of reiterate that for the buyer.
Right.
But as long as we're all working together for the good of the buyer, which a lot of the agents that I work with in Southeast Texas, they're great about, then, we're all on the same page. And that's just the ultimate goal.
Do you like for the buyers to be present at their inspections?
So, man, that's a great question. So with Legendary, most of the time, 90% of the time, we're going to show up with 2 or 3 inspectors on site. And we're very competent and confident in what we do and in our abilities as inspectors. So I definitely want the buyer to be there if they're able to.
Okay.
Now sometimes we get in the zone and we don't do a lot of communicating, but what I always tell everyone is we'll discuss things in phases. So once we've completed the exterior of the property, we're going to give you an overview. There's no need to take notes because everything we discuss is going to already be in the report. And then we'll go on the inside and we'll complete that process. Once we complete the interior, we'll give them another overview of everything that we found and what's going in the report. And
Okay.
so that way, when they get that report, Ms. Daigle, they are not frightened and they kind of can put, that real world experience with what's on pen and paper.
Awesome. And then also, is there things in a house that it's important for them to know the location of or how it works?
So you definitely want them to know where, like, the main shutoff for the water is at. We try to pinpoint that in the report and we put it, but if they're there with us, because in the event of an emergency, you have a house leak, then you need to know where you can go turn the water off at immediately. I
Right.
remember my first home, we had a leak in the garage and at the copper pipe in the garage. I was able to run to the shutoff, one turn and turn it all the water off to the house. That's what you need to know. Electricity, you want to know where the main shut off to your electrical panels at. Because a lot of
Right.
times in these homes, they'll have multiple panels. You have a sub panel, a main panel, and you need to know, in the event of emergency, I need to be able to turn that electricity off at one throw or 6 or less throws, right? That's the
Right.
type of information that, sellers need to know. You need to know where your furnace is at, especially if it's in the attic. In Southeast Texas, we get to running that AC. And I've seen time and time again that water will get deposited in that pan in the attic. It'll spill
Yep.
over. Now we got an issue. So you need to know where that's at so you can turn that off immediately, or you can, kind of pinpoint different things. But definitely is if the buyer's there, is beneficial because the inspector can pinpoint, where these main or these key components are located in the home.
Awesome. And I like that because a lot of times, like you said, if someone isn't there and they get that report, they really get, I guess, disappointed by some of the things they
Oh,
see, and they may
wow.
not understand that it's really something minor, a minor fix. Um, or either they want to ask for everything in the report to be fixed by the seller instead of understanding, this is something that I can really run down to Lowe's, grab a $5 part and do myself, so
Hmm.
that it's not such a turn off to the seller that you're asking for minor things, and they're more
Yes, ma'am.
likely to agree to fix, the other major components that you're asking for. So absolutely. Now, depending on financing, I know different types of financing, sometimes you may be required to have a pest inspection too. Um, as far as the pest inspection, do you work hand in hand with another company that does that? Is that something you all offer?
That's a great question. So one of the things that separate Legendary Inspection Group apart from a lot of inspection companies, not just in Southeast Texas, but just in Texas peers, that I'm actually a certified applicator with the Texas Department of Agriculture. So I conduct my own termite inspections on site.
Awesome.
And whether a person is whether you purchase a termite inspection or not, with Legendary, we're going to include that. We're looking for that. We're looking for termites or wood destroying insects because we specialize in the termite category. And
Okay.
so if we see that, we'll put it in the report. Oftentimes, like you said, some loans required. And so with Legendary, that's definitely something that we don't have to outsource or we don't have to go to someone else. That's taken care of on the spot. And when you receive our report, you'll also receive that wood destroying insect inspection report as well.
Okay. And then how much do you all charge separately for the pest inspection?
So if the termite inspection or if the pest inspection is coupled with the home inspection, it's just an additional $75. Now, if you need it after the fact, and me and one of my guys has to go back out to the property, then we charge $125.
Okay. All right. And then are there certain conducive conditions on properties that homeowners need to be aware of?
Yes, ma'am. So homeowners, so the buyers and the sellers, we don't like to see standing water around a foundation. Like ponding water is never a good thing. Rotted wood. If you have rotted wood, that's definitely a conducive condition for wood destroying insects. A lot of times, when the siding meets the soil, or you have siding and soil contact, that could be a conducive condition for wood destroying insects, especially with the subterranean termites here in Southeast Texas, because a lot of times we
They're
see brick
bad.
veneer. So,
Yeah.
so that termite, those subterraneans, they'll come up from the foundation, through the foundation, they'll get into those weep holes. But if that brick siding meets that foundation, then you won't see it.
Okay.
Another thing, and I love the curb appeal. So I love the mulch and the shrubs. But when those shrubs or that mulch touches the siding and you don't have that 6-inch clearance, then again, those termites or those wood destroying insects can go undetected for a period of time. And until they begin to cause destruction, you don't even know. So you definitely want to give it about a 6-inch clearance, clean up any ponding water, and rotted wood. Don't let freestanding wood just sitting directly next to the home or next to the siding.
Okay.
Those
And
definitely,
that's,
yes, ma'am.
I always say that a lot of people get into real estate because they think it's glamorous. I have a story about that. I actually had a deal that it came back, the appraiser, the inspector called it out first, and then the appraisal came back, and they said we could not close until a trench was dug around the property because the mulch and all of that was built up too high around the house. And we were supposed to be closing the next day, and I was on my way to Houston for another appointment when I got the call saying, okay, we're not going to be able to close tomorrow if this trench is not dug. I turned back around, went home, grabbed a shovel, went to
Come
my
on.
client's house, and literally got in the mud, put my tennis shoes on, and dug a trench around the front and the sides of the house to get that deal closed the next day. But people don't realize when they're doing this landscaping, oh, yeah, it looks nice, but it's an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so as a seller, you definitely want to be aware of that, because you don't want the inspector saying, we can't see part of the foundation, and that raises a red flag to your buyers.
Right.
So if you're proactive with it, then it covers you in so many areas.
Oh, and what about the wood fences touching the house?
Oh, so we don't see it as much anymore, but prior to like a few years back, wood fences would touch the house, and you don't want that, because again, those termites, they'll tunnel up through that wood. If it's connected to the house, then they'll get it behind that, either that wood finish or that brick veneer, and cause issues. Yep.
Right.
And so you definitely don't want that wood fence touching the property.
Now, in Southeast Texas, of course, we deal with a lot of hurricanes and flooding. What are some of the telltale indicators that a property has been flooded? Because we know, unfortunately, sometimes everybody is not honest about whether
On your
their
sales
property has
disclosure.
flooded. Yeah.
So, I mean, we definitely like to do our research, and being from Southeast Texas, that's one of the benefits. I kind of know what areas have flooded, right? And
Right.
so if I walk into a property, if I know the area during Harvey or Imelda, it's because those are our two most recent, storms, then I know, man, this area flooded. And then I asked the buyer, did they make a note of anything on the seller disclosure? And they'll make, no, they didn't note it, or the seller lives out of town, they're really not fully aware, so on and so forth. But sometimes you can see where they kind of cut the sheetrock. Now, if they're a good contractor, then you won't see any of that, right?
Right.
But that's a tall tale sign. Or one of the things that we look at as inspectors. So if you see those, like the new outlets or the new cover plates 4 or 5 feet below, and then you
Hmm.
go somewhere else, like in a bathroom, and you see those
Older
older,
ones.
outdated, and now we kind of line some things like, why did they remodel that and then didn't fix
Right.
this? So now we kind of putting some things together. And then, for those that don't remodel, you can kind of see a water line, or if it's been more recent, then you can kind of get a smell of mold, you
Yes.
know. And as in, we don't test for mold here at Legendary, but we definitely recommend there are several companies to go out there and test and remediate for that, because that could be a tell as well, to let them know that it's possibly molded or flooded in this house, and you want to get that repaired. So those are some of the signs that we use here at Legendary.
What are, I guess, some of the steps that they need to ensure have been taken if a house has been flooded, as far as the rehab of that property?
So definitely, I mean, if the house has been rehabbed, I definitely just get with the seller or your agent, get with the listing agent about, what exactly has been done, because our first home that we purchased, and we didn't have any knowledge of it, but When our house flooded during the middle, we had to cut the sheetrock, and I noticed rotted studs in the wall, and I'm like, man, if we hadn't remodeled, I would have never known that. But I didn't think to ask that as well. Had the house flooded prior. I was just so excited about getting in my property, but definitely asking more questions, doing your due diligence. I recently inspected a house for a couple in Bevel Oaks, and that young lady was able to tell me, the
Notorious for
wife of the
flooding.
buyer. Right. But the wife of the buyer, she was able to tell me everything about that property,
Right.
from the
That's
seller's
good.
disclosure, from online, from doing the homework. And I say, ma'am, you are an informed buyer.
That's awesome.
And that's what you want to be. You just want to be an informed buyer about, what was done. Was it remediated? Do you have receipts? What company did you use? Ask those questions to cover yourself.
Right. Because I've seen, especially right after Harvey, I dealt with a lot of properties that had been flooded out. And so you have some people that they basically just went in there themselves and tried to do the work and
Of
maybe
course.
didn't, have the house dried out like they were supposed to, didn't have the paperwork they were supposed to have. And later on, when they got ready to sell it, it became a problem. Or I
Yes.
had another client that she got into her house and she had an inspection. But later on, mold started to show up in the house and really caused her and her children some respiratory issues. So
Yes.
it's definitely a concern. And like you say,
Hmm.
the good thing about being from the area, as you and I have, we know what parts of town, flood the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a family member, somebody's in one of those flood areas, right?
Right.
Like, or maybe your house is in that area, like, but definitely just having that knowledge.
Yeah, but I tell people it really doesn't matter where you live. Flood insurance is so cheap, you need it. It's better
Why not?
to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So,
Exactly. I
yeah,
agree.
cover yourself. As far as investors, I deal with a lot of investors that they feel like, okay, I'm already buying a property that needs rehabbing. Why do I need an inspection? What would you say to them?
So I definitely deal with a lot of investors here in Southeast Texas, and they utilize our services, but they understand the importance of still knowing, exactly what all is wrong with the property, that you can't see past the eye, that you need a specialist like ourselves to go out and further evaluate it. One of the things that we, most often, catch for our investors, framing issues, foundational issues, structural issues, especially for the pier and beam houses. And one of the benefits to having an inspection report as an investor is oftentimes you can just hand that report over to your general contractor and let them go to work.
Absolutely.
And let them go to work, because they'll bring things, they'll fix electrical problems, you know, they'll find rotted wood, they'll replace all those different types of things, and the code is kind of changing on standards of practice is changing here in Southeast Texas. So any outlet under 5 feet, they want that tamper resistant now. You
Right.
know, doors that to a home that leads to the garage, they want that fire rated and self-closing.
Right.
So if you have an inspector as an investor, he's now giving you the newer trends, so that when it's time to put that house on the market, you don't have any issues.
Okay. And that's a big one. As far as like a scope of work, is that something that you all can provide or an estimate of what the repairs would be?
I typically try to stay away from that,
Okay.
but being from Southeast Texas, I definitely recommend when I give over a recommendation for a contract, I try to send over several. Anybody that's worked with Legendary will know I try to send over multiple electricians or plumbers, flooring contractors, sheet wall guys, so that way you can get a good estimate that works for you.
Great.
But as far as trying to give a price, I try to stay away from that because I could be wrong. Because you know what, wood shot up here in the last since the pandemic started. So wood is more expensive,
Not
labor is
just
more
that.
expensive.
In the past month, it's like triple.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to give pre COVID numbers, and now these guys is charging $200, $300, $400 more, and they're looking like, Mr. Clark, you didn't say that. You
Right.
know? Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And as far as investors, do you think they should be pulling or going back and looking at the permits that have been pulled on the property?
Of course, if you have access to it and you can, I definitely do your research and do your due diligence. So that way you know exactly what was done and what was called out, why something was flagged, and if it was repaired correctly. There's a
Okay.
lot of things that we can't see, with the common eye. We go into some of these properties and these wholesalers know, hey, people, they're selling a dream most times. And so you just
Yes.
want to be prepared. You want to be prepared as an investor to make sure this deal is going to work for you.
Well, and a lot of people that are wholesaling has become the big thing now. Um, I've done wholesaling for years.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
and so a lot of people that are into wholesaling now, they really don't have any real estate background and they don't know, So
Right.
they're just trying to make that difference in there, but they really can't tell you anything about the property or what you need to be looking for. So yeah, you always need to have somebody that's going to look out for your interests. Like you said, have an
Exactly.
inspector. Yeah. Because a lot of times, if not, you're going to end up, you know, holding somebody else's bag.
Oh, of course. And I'll
Yeah.
let you know one thing, we love investment properties because when me and the guys go in there, it's like, hey guys, let's have fun. We writing up everything. And it's almost it's almost a teaching moment because that's what the investors want.
Yeah.
They're like, tell me everything that's wrong with this property.
Right.
And so it's a teaching moment for myself and a lot of times for the inspectors on staff. So, it's definitely good to have that.
Awesome. And for people who are builders, and they may have a GC. However, do you all offer a service like where you'll go in at different times or maybe weekly or whatever to actually inspect the work as it's being done?
So most time builders here in Southeast Texas, they definitely do not hire us for that service. Now, our buyers, we definitely conduct phase inspections. So that phase one will be a pre-pour, phase two will be the pre-drywall, and phase three is typically our final inspection. I get a lot of those out there in Orange County.
Okay.
We get several calls a week about those phase inspections. But definitely as a buyer of a new construction,
Mhm.
I would definitely have that house inspected, okay? Because a lot of times it's not the buyer, or I'm sorry, it's not the builder that's out there, like in 1900s with the hammer and the
Right.
nail and the wood. It's not the
Yeah, that's
builder.
not
It's
the case.
contractors doing the work. Exactly. So it's just contractors doing the work. We're all subject to human error.
Yeah.
And so you definitely just want to make sure that when you get ready to spend this, because the market's crazy, but when you get ready to spend this three, four, $500,000 on this new dream home, have somebody go out there and inspect it for you so that way just as a peace of mind. Just as
And
a peace of mind.
that's one of the biggest things I see with people buying homes. They put 100% trust in the builder. They don't think they need a realtor. They don't think they need an inspector. They're trusting the builder to do everything. And definitely later on, I've had so many people call me after they've signed on the dotted line and they're like, I think something is wrong. Can you kind of step in? I'm sorry, at that point, I can't, because you've already signed the contract. Or, like you said, once their house is built and they move in and they realize that now they have issues that the builder doesn't want to go back and fix, so you definitely need somebody making sure that things are done correctly because once sheetrock and some paint is put on it, you
Come
may
on.
never know until you start having issues.
Exactly. And I mean, we have I don't want to say horror stories, but we have so many stories here in Southeast Texas, and we definitely get multiple calls to go to Houston. 288 South, we're there at least once a week doing new constructions, right? But
Really?
we are, and I'm not sure why. Like I said, I like to, for my Houston inspectors out there, I definitely like to refer business to them, but
Right.
sometimes they just want us out there. So we'll make the trip. But we've gone in rooms and whole rooms or bedrooms don't have any electricity. It is not because a breaker's
Oh,
been turned
wow.
off. It's just because, man, somebody just overlooked something. We've removed dead front covers and on the electrical panel, and we've just seen different things in the panels. And
Right.
so we've gone in attics after they said it's the final inspection, and we've seen no insulation.
What?
I tell you, we went in. It was. I'm like, well, maybe the builder just skipped this step. I'm not sure. Or maybe somebody said they did it and didn't follow up. But no
Right.
insulation in the attic, new construction. No, as a buyer, especially of a new construction, just hey, protect yourself. spend a fraction of the money that house is going to cost you and just get it inspected.
Yeah, especially when you're, like you said, spending that much money. I mean, you
Oh
would rather
man,
spend another couple of $100s rather than down the line have to spend thousands. So
exactly. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
that's a really big thing. For anyone that is looking for an awesome inspector, please give Gregory a call. His number is at the bottom of the screen. And Greg, you want to tell the people about how they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm really not a big social media guy, but we are there. I know we're on Instagram and I know we're on Facebook, but
Yes.
Legendary Inspection Group, definitely look us up, follow us. We definitely like to educate buyers. We like to educate agents. So we definitely post videos and pictures so you can kind of see what our inspectors are seeing at the time of the inspection. It's definitely it's just a great tool to have. And if not anything, it's just educational. It'll capture your attention for at least a minute or two. But definitely utilize Legendary Inspection Group. When we come out, we're definitely looking, we're certified by the Texas Department of Agriculture to do those termite inspections. We're certified by the FAA because now these houses and these roofs are getting a whole lot steeper and higher. And so
Yes.
we'll definitely send up that drone in order to catch those shots of the roof, especially for the ones that we can't walk on. So, days of climbing on them ladders is we kind of getting away from that, but we're trying to just keep up with the times. And so definitely, if you want to be present at the inspection, we welcome that. We'll educate you during that buying process. And for our agents out there, especially you, Ms. Daigle, the goal is for all of us to work hand in hand.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the podcast with us and give us some great information. If anyone has any other questions, you can always call Mr. Clark at 409-273-5909. Or if you're looking to buy or sell, you can always reach me at 281-892-1332 or in Beaumont 409-276-SOLD. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Daigle. You have a great day.
You too.
This is Honey Badger Nation,
where real estate agents from around the globe come together
to grow, collaborate,
and expand their business.
Where we take our individual fires and put them together and make one big fire.
This is the Honey Badger Nation.